Now, the first orphanage I started in was like basically like preschool for young orphans. And in that orphanage, because there's only like one caretaker for like 20 or 30 kids, they would belt us to the bed at night. So we wouldn't have to they wouldn't have to worry about us like getting up.
Okay.
And so we would basically have a belt here and a belt here, and we would lay on our backs. And I remember them just putting the belts on at night. And I do remember they used to do like fear tactics about the witch. And so like after they would belt us, because technically you can still kind of get out, but they would tell us like, hey, the witch is coming to do like the night check. And I remember looking back, I knew what was happening. They would do like the big stomps, and you'd have to close your eyes. And like say, you can't open your eyes, you have to lay there still, or else the witch will get you.
Yep. Are you recording on your end?
Hi, I'm Suzanne, and I'm a Christian. I've spent my entire life in what I call an echo chamber.
Oh my gosh.
I've just always been surrounded by people who look like me and think like me, and the world is so divisive. I just personally want to leave my echo chamber, and I want to get uncomfortable, and I want to sit down with people who have different belief systems than me. And seek to understand their story. And I want to love them for who they are, where they are.
Of course. We're going to start with some icebreakers.
Awesome.
We love to start with icebreakers. Cringy humble brags aside, what is something you are genuinely really good at?
I think I'm good at really simplistically communicating how to make content entertaining for people. So taking what people want to talk about and then converting that into an interesting angle that is going to help a lot of people or entertain a lot of people.
I agree, you are good at that. What is one piece of fashion advice your 15-year-old self desperately needed to hear?
Oh man, I always tucked in my shirt, wore a belt, had a collared shirt. I just needed to chill a little bit and, just have a t-shirt vibe going on. But I was very polished as I was a
Would you have been
young
allowed
child.
to wear a t-shirt?
I think I just didn't, I went with the flow. So I really didn't have a sense of style back in the day.
Yeah. Today I'm excited to talk to my friend Connor Wagner. We've been friends for
close to a decade. We've known of each other, but I feel like over the past 5 years.
Yeah, we'll be friends for life. Mm-hmm. He's just one of those, and he's an extraordinary, talented person, and I don't want to butcher like what you do.
Yeah. The best way I can describe it is basically I'm a consultant for shows and audience development and strategy, and then definitely on the how to create it and then how to distribute that content across digital platforms.
We're very grateful to have his perspective today.
Awesome. Happy to be here. So excited.
Are you?
Yes, I really am.
Okay. Yeah. You've had a very interesting life story. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the first 8 years of your life. Mm-hmm. Describe that for us.
So I was born in the Soviet Union in 1990. My birth mom, her boyfriend at the time, basically stole food. And this was like Soviet era, think like food lines. And in Russia, well, Soviet Union at that time, if you stole food, you went to prison for 10 years. And so he got caught stealing food, which left basically me alone with my mom. Mm-hmm. So my mom's mom drank, and she had basically fetal alcohol syndrome. So whenever my birth dad was arrested, she wasn't able to take care of me anymore. And so my aunt at that time realized, she was married at the time. She realized, hey, my sister's not able to take care of her new son. So I actually lived with my aunt for a little bit, but even then she couldn't really take care of me financially. And there was some separation with her and her husband at that time. And so basically my aunt convinced my mom to put me into a Russian orphanage, because that way, at least I got food and, shelter. Theoretically. And basically at the age of 3, I went to the Russian orphanage. Whenever people hear oh, you grew up in a Russian orphanage, they're like, oh, that sounds horrible. But looking back, there was definitely things that were just oh yeah, looking back, I can see why people thought that. But it was kind of one of those cases where if you don't know what you're missing, you kind of just go with the flow. An example of that is, to this day, I'm so thankful for my morning hot showers, because in the orphanage, we basically had a line of 20 kids, boys and girls, and we had one bathtub. And there was literally only enough hot water to fill up that hot tub once. And then you would just like pray that you were just one of the kids earlier in the line.
Well,
because
how
if
did
you
you
were,
do that? Like,
yeah,
how did you get early in line?
you just kind of had to luck out. Yeah, I don't remember the exact process, but I do remember a few times I was towards the back. And by the time you got there, the water wasn't really clean and it was freezing cold. And especially in the winters, taking a bath.
You're 3 years old. Are you bathing yourself?
No, they had a caretaker there. There was like 2 people for like the 25 kids. The other moment that I remember before I was dropped off in the orphanage was basically being in a room by myself and just crying and nobody was around to help. And I think that's probably one of the earliest memories I have.
So how long were you at the orphanage?
So I was in the orphanage till I was 7 years old. I was almost 8. And my mom now, she worked for a adoption agency in
Your
Buckner.
birth mom?
No, my mom now, who
Okay.
adopted me. She was working at a adoption agency in Buckner. And so she was on a trip working and saw me in the corner playing with a fire truck, which is really funny because I was very introverted as a kid. And so we had guests come by, doctors, dentists, just people visiting the orphanage. And so whenever that happened, I always saw that as an opportunity to play with my favorite toy, because whenever all the kids were there, it was tough to play with your favorite toys. And so I saw that happen. And so basically in my selfishness of wanting to play with the toy by myself, when all the kids ran up to the group that my mom was in, she noticed me in the corner playing by myself. And she was like, hey, I like that kid.
That's a cute kid.
Yeah, that's a cute kid.
Where's Buckner?
Buckner's in Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth area.
So,
it's an adoption
so the
agency.
adoption agency was located there.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And my mom always wanted to adopt. And at that time, she wasn't even married or anything. She was single. And so she decided to adopt me, and which started, so I was actually probably 5 or 6 at the time, because the adoption process took about a year and a half, 2 years.
Did you meet her that day?
I met her that day. She remembers me like kissing her hand and giving her a hug after all the kids dispersed, of course.
Do you remember meeting her?
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
What stands out to you about that moment?
I remember like a warmth to her,
Okay.
and I was like, oh, somebody's different about this person.
You might have to really think about this. What is the worst thing you experienced during your time at the orphanage?
The worst thing. I'll tell you a few things I experienced. So one thing I experienced first, so the orphanage I was in, I believe was the second orphanage from the one I started in. Now, the first orphanage I started in was like basically like preschool for young orphans. And in that orphanage, because there was only like one caretaker for like 20 or 30 kids, they would belt us to the bed at night. So we wouldn't have to they wouldn't have to worry about us like getting up.
Okay.
And so we would basically have a belt here and a belt here, and we would lay on our backs. And I remember them just putting the belts on at night. And I do remember they used to do like fear tactics about the witch. And so like after they would belt us, because technically you can still kind of get out, but they would tell us like, hey, the witch is coming to do like the night check. And I remember looking back, I knew what was happening. They would do like the big stomps, and you'd have to close your eyes and like say you can't open your eyes. You have to lay there still, or else the witch will get you.
Are you in a room full of kids?
Yeah, 20, 30 kids all strapped to
beds.
beds.
Are kids crying? Are you crying?
No. So the other thing is, if you go into the orphanage as a baby and you go visit, whenever you walk into those rooms, all the babies are like quiet. Because the one thing that babies learn really fast is that crying doesn't do anything for you. And so after a year or so, like you walk into an orphanage with babies in it, the initial, yes, but like after a while, there's nobody coming to you, no matter how much you cry. So I think I got a little bit of that. So that's why I think emotionally, I've always been kind of cold and objective, because I don't think earlier on I had much nurturing from like a emotional standpoint.
As a mother, that's heartbreaking
Yes.
to me.
Yeah. I always like to make humor of things, because I feel like, if you're not going to laugh about it, you'll kind of end up crying. And also, like, for me, humor shows that, hey, I'm aware those things happen, but also, like, I've moved past it. One of my favorite stories is we basically collected dead bugs because, or even live ones, around the orphanage because we like pets. And in the Russian orphanage, your pet selection is very low. And so I remember it was like summertime, and there was this big, fluffy bumblebee that was dead. And so I was like, okay, it's a big, fluffy bumblebee. It can't hurt me. This is going to be my new pet. And so that night, I had the pet bumblebee in my hand, and I was being strapped in bed like normal. We did the whole witch is coming routine, and all the kids were quiet. And so I started petting that bumblebee. It was super soft. And what I didn't know at the time is that dead bumblebees can still sting you. And so I was petting a dead bumblebee in a Russian orphanage strapped to the bed with belts. And then I pet it too low and I sting myself. And I scream bloody murder. And then the whole orphanage, like all the 20, 30 kids in the beds also strapped in, they start screaming and crying because they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, they think the witch
and
is
so,
come.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, did anyone come and check on you?
Yes, yeah, they came and come checked on me. They got rid of the bee, but I just remember
did they treat your wound?
Oh no, it was just you got stung by a bee.
Talk about the day you left the orphanage. Mm-hmm. Was your mom still single at that time?
Mm-hmm. So during the adoption process, she met my dad and they started dating. After I was adopted, they got married. I was actually the best man in their wedding, which was super cool.
And you were how old?
I was, I believe, 9 or 10 when they got married.
Okay.
So it was a little bit after I got adopted. It's probably a year after. So probably, 9 or 10. Okay. But some of the transitions as far as going from the orphanage to America is the one thing in the orphanage we had, our version of Santa, Father Frost or whatever. And he would swing by the orphanage and basically let us open toys. But after we opened up our one toy, we had to give it back because they would be basically just toys for the orphanage. And they would basically go to a different floor and do the same thing there. So my first Christmas, after I opened up presents from my mom and my dad, they were dating at the time, I opened up the presents and my first question was, which ones do I get to keep? Because I had no, I couldn't comprehend oh no, these are all for me. I got to just keep it because I was just trained okay, well that was fun opening and then here you go, can I keep this one? And so that was really different.
Okay, so do you remember physically leaving the orphanage with this new mom? What was your awareness of what was happening?
At that time, literally a homeless person could have walked off the street and said, hey, I'm going to be your dad or I'm going to be your mom. And I would have had the exact same amount of excitement and joy that I felt with my mom taking me. Because really in the orphanage, sure, we didn't have much food and all that. But at the end of the day, I knew I was missing that love and being somebody's child.
How did you even have that awareness?
I think it was just an emptiness inside that I felt.
You didn't have a television where you were watching.
No, we did have a television.
Okay, so you saw families on TV probably.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we're I don't have that.
Yeah.
Okay. You have a vivid memory of the day your mom, what's her name?
Becky.
Yep. Picked you up and did you call her mom right away?
Oh yeah, immediately. I was so excited because again, you're basically being rescued, from this horrible situation. So I was super excited to start a new life. Even when I knew I was going to be adopted, I literally was asking, my caretakers, is today the day? And they're no, you got a year. You got a year to go.
Oh my God.
And so I'm sure they were very, annoyed by it.
And kids are so impatient.
Exactly.
A year feels like 10 years.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
Man. Did you see your mom, Becky, at any point in time during that time?
So her and my dad basically made a collage book of all of my cousins now and grandparents, basically saying, hey, this is going to be your family. So I got a book with basically, hey, this is going to be your new family. So I got to hold on to that. They also sent me a Mickey Mouse watch that literally
and you got to keep it.
I got to keep it. And I remember, I don't know why I'm getting emotional, but laying in bed and just listening to the the little taking on the watch. Sorry, it's so dumb.
That's not dumb.
But just thinking like it's just a matter of time before I'm out here. So
Oh my gosh. Do you still have that Mickey Mouse watch?
yeah, I think it's in the box somewhere. Yeah,
I hope so.
but yeah, it was small things like that that just kind of remind me
Yeah.
of where I was going. And one of the other, I think this paints a good picture of my appreciation, and I feel like I see the world differently because of this. So one of the other things we did in the orphanage is we'd go on walks.
Okay.
And I remember we'd walk by fruit stands. And fruit stands was basically, in my mind as a child, the difference between a normal person being where they are to being a Jeff Bezos. Like that was the distance in my mind between me and that banana, like eating a banana.
Yeah.
Which sounds like crazy. And when I got adopted, I ate so many freaking bananas and fruit to a point where I hate bananas now. Like I'm
Wow.
actually getting back to like enjoying them. But I use that example just as I walk through life as, you know, now I just have where I am financially and where I am with life and family. Like I've won the lottery so many times in my mind. And I just remember that distance between me and a simple banana, and how a lot of people strive for that next thing to fulfill them. And I just remember like, you know, that's literally was me, and I got all the bananas in the world. I know that getting more or you know, more stuff, like this world isn't about stuff. And so that's really stuck with me, just like that. I still feel that same, I remember what that felt like.
Yeah.
The distance between me and a banana, the distance between me and having a family, the distance, like so many things that we just
Yeah.
kind of take for granted and everybody gets automatically here.
Yeah.
Which is honestly why I think like this is the most amazing country in the world, because, you know, we just as a society keep moving the bar of like bananas in our life. Like, okay, if I had this banana, then everything would be fine. And we just don't realize we literally have a bowl of fruit sitting there.
Yeah.
And like,
Well, it creates a lack of contentment,
Yeah.
which isn't good.
exactly.
But there's a positive side of that, is what you're talking about, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
You grew up in Brentwood, Tennessee.
I grew up in East Texas, so I started. I lived a year with my mom in Dallas, and then after they got married, we moved to Tyler, East Texas, and automatically when I was adopted, you know, my mom was a believer. I immediately was like, whatever you say, you just saved me out of a Russian orphanage. I'm going to believe whatever you tell me. But really, it was probably until I was, you know, honestly 11 years old before I felt like I was making that decision on my own.
What happened? Do you remember a moment or a person of influence who helped to trigger that for you?
I think my mom's best friends, Lori Rippert and Carol Getty, were the two people in my life. They were basically like my other moms, so to speak. And they were just, and my mom also, just all just so very influential in guiding me to the Lord, really understanding like if my mom wasn't a believer, she probably wouldn't have been led to do that, because, you know, she really felt like God was calling her to adopt. And so out of the gates, you know, I was like, man, whether God's real or not, her belief in God is the reason why I'm here today.
At any point in your life, have you had to process and deal with like, all right, I've chosen to believe there's a God. He's all powerful. He's the higher power, whatever.
Yeah.
But he allowed me to endure what I did and have the lack of bond with my mother and grow up in an orphanage. Like, have you ever had to struggle with that?
It's really when I started having kids that I realized, oh, this is what, like, you know, people are thinking about when they hear that I didn't have really
But for
anything.
you personally,
Yeah.
has there been a time where your faith has been in question, even briefly, because you've had to wrestle with that?
I've never really wrestled with it. I think the best way I can describe it is a blinding gratitude of just where I am. Just like being in this country, just for even as simple as like having a mom and dad now. Like, I'm just so thankful for that. And the longer I move through life, the more grateful I become. And I always have been, I feel like, but definitely every day that goes by, I'm more grateful for that experience in the orphanage.
Do your children know about your time in the orphanage? Have you talked about that?
So I have started, telling my son Crew, he's 7, about that. He's starting to wrap his head around that as
Yeah.
much as possible, but haven't really deep dive,
Yeah.
with them yet. But definitely that's something they know is part of my story, and like I very much share that with them.
Have you had any trust issues in relationships during your life?
Not really trust issues. I think the biggest thing that I continue to work on is the emotional connection side of relationships. It really wasn't until like I found my wife and had kids where I can like, oh my gosh, it's like something broke inside of me in a good way where I'm like, this is how my parents feel about me, my current parents.
What type of church did you grow up
A
in?
Baptist church, yeah, Southern Baptist church.
So no negative feelings or emotions.
Exactly. And again, my parents did the best they could. We had other stuff going on family-wise through that, but I really didn't have time or the environment with my parents to like casually bring up, hey, I'm struggling with this or that. It was like,
You just had to shove it down.
yeah, and anytime something slipped up or I made a bad decision, the harshness, a level of harshness that would come down on me for even that occurring would remind me, oh man, like if that's the punishment I get for that, I better not share anything else that's going on internally.
Was that from your parents?
That's from my parents, yeah, and my dad specifically. I think his parents were really tough on him. He had what appears to be a really good relationship with his dad, but looking back, I don't know how that's possible because it was almost like for my dad, it's like as long as things look good to everyone else between us two, then we have a good relationship. Whereas for me, I'd rather it be actually a good relationship. I'd rather you hear the difficult things I want to communicate and vice versa. And then we sit with that, we talk about it versus like, oh, you think that? Like, how dare you? Let me feel like, make you feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I've gone through with the church where I can easily justify leaving, and I can understand why people outside the church view the church the way they do is because, I was a believer, I was in it, and I feel like horrible going through it because they're more focused about the outside appearance of things rather than the like true reality of how you were doing as a person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about, you have siblings. Do you want to talk about your siblings? And you're the oldest, but then your parents decided to adopt again.
Yep. So and again, I'm going to butcher the timelines, but generally speaking, about 2 years later, they adopted my brother David, not my real brother, but my brother now, from the same orphanage. Then about a year or two later, they adopted Jackson, and then same thing, about a year or two later, they adopted my sister Molly. And all my brothers were in the same orphanage, but we weren't there at the same time. And then Molly was in a different orphanage, but still in the St. Petersburg area. And so we're all about a year or two apart.
How did you feel when they were brought into the picture?
Yeah, I was super excited to get siblings. My parents now say, oh yeah, you were asking like every week, please can I get a brother? And which I don't remember, but I'm sure it happened.
Well, that's what you asked for.
Yeah, but when my brother David came along, I was super pumped. Same thing with Jackson and then Molly. Like, I was just happy. I was like, oh my goodness, like this experience brought me so much joy. Like, I'm so excited that other siblings are coming and joining the family, and we can kind of share.
Connor, a lot of people have had bad things happen to them. And they've chosen to live as a victim.
Yeah.
And they approach all of life through that lens. Like, I'm a victim. Life happens to me. I can't control it. I can't do anything about it. Like, how do you feel about those people?
That's one of those areas that I've been trying to get much better at with understanding other people's perspectives on things like that. Historically, I've been very cold about it. I'm like, they give me an example, and not that it's a comparison game. I'm like, oh, you should like hear what I went through. But my siblings don't have the same gratitude that I have for like being here, for having opportunities I have. and then really wanting to give back for the opportunities. Like, you know,
Why do you think that is?
I really don't understand how we can all come from the same experience and come out the other end completely different. But I love the example of like two brothers going to a room full of manure. You probably heard this joke. And one of the brothers just kind of sits in the manure and pouts like, this sucks. Like, I'm just in a room full of manure. And then you got the other brother digging around in the manure, flipping up in the air, and people are like, what are you doing? And that other brother's like, with this much manure, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. And I think that I've always loved that analogy because that's the way I view life. Is like, yes, bad things have happened, but I'm able to connect with those experiences. And when other people share their stories, I can, you know, whether they're good or bad, I can connect with them on a whole nother level. And the level of gratitude is just given me for the simple things in life that I feel like a lot of people are blind to is a gift enough on its own. So
would you, if you know, like if someone's listening or watching this and they really feel like a victim, they do feel like life has given them a pile of manure.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can tell them, like a first step to take, one thing to do to help them overcome that and change their perspective ultimately, even if it might take time?
Yeah. I love Dr. John Deloney's quote. He's on YouTube. He always says, like, facts are your friends. And just like for me personally, I think about all the kids in the orphanage that didn't make it, that are on the streets or ended up in the military, that are now dying in Ukraine for no reason. People who are victims in this country, if you're just literally a citizen in this country, you're in the top 1% of the world. So just having the lens of where you are in the world compared to just 99% of people, if you look at the facts and then you still decide, you know what, I'm still a victim, even though I'm in the top 1% of the world, there's not much I can convince anybody to do. I think it's all about...
You think it's a good idea to maybe even as a practice, like sit down and physically write down the facts?
Yes.
Like, this is how I feel, but reality is I have a place to live, I have a car to drive, you know, whatever. Maybe a pros and cons list or something like that. Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. And even for me, like, and where I am in my life, again, the things that I've been able to do and have, like, again, I've won the lottery multiple times, but even me, I can find myself like, oh, you know, that's a nice car. You know, I have a nice car. Like what am I doing? Like I think I'm like worse off because I don't have X, Y, or Z. So even in my shoes, it's so easy to slip into comparison or, if I had this other thing, it would bring me joy. So I'm the first to say I'm just as bad as anyone else when it comes to that. But I very quickly am able to remind myself like where I came from, what I have. And it's not just like comparing to other people and then feeling good about it. It's just like, man, God's really blessed me, you know. And even if I was, you know, a bowl of bananas, like I would still be happy, you know, if everything else is taken away and I had some fruit, like at the end of the day, like, that's like, I still remember like that was my bar. And like now there's no reason to be complaining about anything.
So what are you doing, Connor, to, on this journey to seek like a real relationship with God? What are you doing in order to create that or to allow that to happen? So really the biggest thing is I had to stop believing the lie that somehow I owed God a debt to just being here. The opportunity is giving me. I feel like growing up, even with the church, like, oh man, God's going to use you in big ways. Like he's got you here for a reason. And that really, even though it wasn't necessarily verbalized, it was basically saying, you better do some good stuff because, you know, you're here and God put you here. And boy, like you don't want to disappoint God if you don't do some stuff while you're here. And so that's really what led me to getting burned out after really 8 years of my career doing that. And again, I woke up and realized I really don't have a true in-depth relationship. Like, yes, I have a relationship with God, but it was a very like utility in nature. Examples like if I did something that really moved the needle where I felt like, you know, I really
change somebody's life through my work, I gave myself permission to be at peace with having what I have. I viewed God as like smiling down at me. And then if there were seasons in my life where I wasn't accomplishing enough, those just weren't great, because I'm like, oh man, my relationship with God is going south because, I'm not making him happy. And so really stopping and, really the church I have now really has helped me with that. I went through a whole 8-month like intensive with a group of guys, and I was able to really dissect and like tear down those lies that really the church historically is like built into me of like, hey, go accomplish, everything needs to be looking good on the outside, and then God's gonna be happy. And really just getting that permission to be like, no, just be present with God in the moment. He doesn't need you to do more. He just wants more of you. And I know it sounds so simple, but just resting and truly believing that as truth has brought me so much peace over the last 2 years. And it's things like that I'm just reshaping, how we need to approach other non-believers, using actually Jesus as an example. Whereas the church, the way I grew up, is like, hey, like we need people to fix themselves before we're comfortable having them with us. They need to figure it out. We need to kind of have this like, oh, we need to pray for them over there. But like, ooh, the second, let's not invite them over here yet. Oh, you guys have, changed your lives and cleaned up your act. Then come on in. Hey, welcome to the party. And so, and that's why I think this show is so important, because I feel like a lot of Christians, and I was probably the worst of them, so I kind of viewed life like that.
Absolutely.
Of like,
I know I did.
Yeah, it's like,
I feel
oh, you're doing that? Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah. And so it's those type of things that I'm trying to drop and really just look at Jesus' example of spending time with people, feeding people, building like relationships with people. And then, when the time comes, like naturally, like they're going to look at you and say, hey, something's different about that person. Because I feel like with the church I grew up with, it was, hey, look at us in the Word. It's Jesus this, Jesus that. It was so like suffocating. And then on the other end of that, I was getting hurt. My family was getting hurt because we had to bury all these things down. And it was like, oh no, let God handle that. Don't do anything. Oh, how dare you? Like that's God's job to fix that. And so really, like, I understand why people leave their faith and leave the church, because, that's so much damage. But I feel like the work that God has done in my life, and even through the negative things, the great job that my parents did with showing like who God is and equipping me to explore that for myself, is really what's kept me so grounded in my faith. I think what I love about the Bible is all throughout Scripture, God uses really broken people to really further the kingdom. Moses straight up, murdered a guy. Like adultery, David slept around, like literally murdered a guy.
And the Bible says he was a man after God's own heart.
Yeah. And so using that lens, and again, back to bad situations or even churches that are broken, I think that just speaks into like the power of God, that even through broken people and broken churches, he can still move and change lives. And that's why I don't necessarily have this like, I don't hate the church for that. I don't hate my parents. It's just the reality of like, we're all broken people, and God's proven time over time that he can use the most broken people just as easily as the ones that think that they're, got it all together. I feel like Christians, like, and I will say I was the worst of this, like I would look down on, people that were, gay, lesbian, or that were transgender and having these identity issues. And I really had a moment of reflection probably a year ago, is like, us Christians, we have the biggest identity. We're the biggest cross-dressers, because we literally wear the image of God through professing like we're Christians, and we have the appearance on the outside and all that, but inside, like, we are the biggest culprits and liars of our true identity. Like we're worse than anybody else. And yet we have the audacity to go tell other people how they need to live their lives. And I think that's why, me personally, and why other Christians are so adamant about maintaining that line of thinking, because the second they do that, they realize who the real broken people are.
Yeah, and then they've got to peel back the layers and deal with it, and that's not something anyone wants to do.
Yeah. And so
that's very powerful, the way that you said that.
Yeah. I mentioned my my birth mom's sister, my aunt. When my aunt heard that I was going to be adopted, she actually had to trick my birth mom into signing the paperwork that would allow me to leave Russia. And when the Ukraine war broke out, my Russian cousin, my aunt's son, found me on Facebook and said, "Hey, I just got notice that I have to go fight in Ukraine. Like, if I take my son and my wife and we like flee to the U.S., would you guys be able to help?" And so, full circle, they've been here now for 2 years. We're helping them. We got them apartments. They're seeking asylum, going through the whole process. They got here legally. But literally, my mom's sister is the one that put me in the orphanage, allowed me to get adopted. Yeah. And all these decades later, I'm able to help her son.
You have the resources to help her son.
Help her son not go die in Ukraine for absolutely no reason.
That's
and so
amazing.
It's even sometimes like, hey, I could have been mad at my aunt. How could you put me in the orphanage? How could you sign the paperwork for me to leave like my mom there in St. Petersburg? But how God redeems that all this time later is now he's here in the U.S., his wife's here, their son's here, and he just told me last week she's pregnant, so they're going to have another child. So
do you have a relationship with your birth mother?
So in 2019, so really like right before COVID, I found her on Facebook. So my aunt actually reached out, and I found her, and like, I always thought my parents were dead. And to be fair, my parents always did a good job of like, hey, do you want to know more about your situation? Because we can like reach out and find out. And really, I was like, again, I was so happy to be out there. But again, after I had my first son, I was like, you know what? Like, I know what that connection is. Like, like I wonder like if my parents are even still alive. And so through that Facebook contact with my aunt, she's like, oh yeah, your parents are alive. And I was like, well, like back then I didn't know the story. I was like, well, tell me about the story. My aunt's like, oh, I can't tell you the story, because she didn't want to tell me that she lied and tricked my mom and all that. And so I was like, no, really, because she thought I would just hate her for it.
Right.
So I sent her a whole like long letter saying like, no, thank you for doing the right thing. I wouldn't have the family that I have today if you didn't do the hard thing and sign that paperwork. And basically had my mom sign that paperwork over. And really, that's what allowed about a year or two later for my cousin to reach out and find me, because he knew like I had been in touch with his mom. And so, I've got to send pictures of the kids there. She got me connected. And apparently both my parents are alive, my birth parents. They're not together, but my mom's got a boyfriend. And so I got to FaceTime them. They got to meet.
How did your mom react?
Oh, she was super excited.
Wow.
So I was able to get in contact with my dad on Facebook too. And a really cool thing, he's married, he has a son, so I have a half brother. And so Courtney and I actually were planning to go fly to Russia in 2020. I don't know if anybody remembers, but in 2020 COVID happened. So that kind of put a damper on things. And we were like, hey, no worries, like, we'll go after COVID's over. And then, as we all know, Russia invaded Ukraine. Again, it's probably been a year since I've actually reached out via Facebook, because Russia basically blocked all social media.
You can't contact your family members over there through Facebook. Social media.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually a thing.
Yeah. I have to go through my cousin, and he has to like use a WhatsApp or something just to send a message. Yeah, it's a lot more work rather than,
Okay, so in summarizing our time together, but first of all, I want to say, and I say this a lot, but I believe stories are sacred, and your story is sacred to me. The fact that you would share it with the raw vulnerability that you've shared it is, I don't take that for granted. I feel honored, And I think anyone who listens or watches should feel so honored that they can go be on this journey with you. And I think I might want to like talk to you again more in the future to see like where you are in that journey of intimacy with the Creator. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Your story is very sacred, and I so appreciate that you were willing to share this with me. So thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Let's unpack that. I so enjoyed having Connor at my house because I've known him for so long. And when he told his story, I learned so much about him that I had never known. Connor was literally put in a Russian orphanage by his aunt. And all these years later, he is being used to save the lives of her son, his cousin, and his cousin's family. And how could that happen if he had chosen to stay in a victim mentality and feel sorry for himself, which he would have every right to do from most of our perspectives? And so that's a call out to all of us, regardless of what we've experienced and how we've been hurt. Those things are valid, and it's okay to feel sad and it's okay to feel hurt, but you do have to figure out how to overcome those situations and move past that so that you can be the kind of person that helps other people when the time is right. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. Please, as always, I want to hear from you. So please comment below, and you can even do it anonymously.